With more on this, I'm joined by Monica Medina, a distinguished fellow at Conservation International and the former Assistant Secretary of State for Ocean, Environment, and Science. Also joining us is Bill McKibben, a distinguished scholar of environmental studies at Middlebury College, a contributing writer at The New Yorker, and founder of Third Act, which organizes work on climate and racial justice. Welcome to both of you. I'm sorry, Bill, if that sounded a bit alarmist. I know that you're not given to being alarmist. But people have to understand that this is now policy. This is the kind of thing that the Heritage Foundation and conservative groups have said will happen if Donald Trump is elected. And while we may not be able to roll back climate change, they're even going to roll back the things that allow us to protect ourselves from the impacts of climate change.
I think you were being under alarmist, if anything, Ali.
Fair enough.
And to give you a sense why, look at what happened in Florida in the last 2 weeks. Governor DeSantis, in his continuing audition as a kind of mini Trump, told the state of Florida that they can't even mention climate change in any official legislation. This at a time when Florida is living through the hottest temperatures and muggiest weather ever recorded in what's traditionally a fairly hot place already, at a time when the sea surface temperatures off the coast of Florida are higher than they've ever been, and they're staring down the barrel of what may be the worst hurricane season of all time. What Trump is going to do this time is going to be far worse than what he did last time. And last time he pulled us out of the Paris Climate Accords. That's because he's got the playbook laid out, ready to go this time. And I'll tell you what the kind of final frosting on the cake is. He wants to defund the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, who are the people who maintain the thermometers that tell us how hot it is. I think in his world, if we don't know, then we won't have to talk about it.
Yeah, Monica, it's like COVID testing, right? If you don't test people for COVID, then you don't have COVID. I mean, you were involved in NOAA. This is your bailiwick. This is very serious stuff. We need more science, more measurement, and more ways to figure out action, not fewer. I can't even get my head around what Project 2025 and Trump are thinking.
Thank you so much, Ali, for having me on. And you put it exactly right. He won't just politicize the weather. He will weaponize it against his political enemies. And we know he has the capability to do it because he did it when he was president. And he will go farther this time because he's more in the pocket of big oil and gas than ever before. We know that elections matter. And we cannot stand by and let him undo what is one of the best things that the U.S. federal government does for people in this country, which is provide them straightforward, easy to understand weather and extreme weather forecasts that they use to save their lives, property. It couldn't be more important. And I was so glad to see behind you the map of Hurricane Dorian, where he took a Sharpie and changed the forecast. President Trump put thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of lives at risk by changing that forecast.
Bill, I want to ask you.
No president has ever done that before, and no president should ever do that.
I mean, wild. You remind me of it, but I think to myself, I can't believe. I remember the day he did it, thinking this is crazy. Bill, one of the things that you and I discuss a lot is that. And I talked I was talking to Ben Rhodes about this earlier with people who aren't going to vote for Joe Biden because they're frustrated with the Israel-Gaza policy. There are some people who express that sentiment around climate. They don't think enough has been done. But elections are about choices. And in this case, they are binary choices. And it's only going to get worse with one choice versus the other. But there are things, as Monica said, that this administration has done that go farther than administrations in the past.
Yes. Look, no one's ever going to be able to do enough on climate change because it's the biggest thing that humans have ever done. We've never faced a problem anything like it. But Biden has done more to support clean energy by far than any president before. And in the last year, when he showed the guts to pause new permits for LNG export, he's done more to stand up to dirty energy than any president before. You can tell a sort of measure of how much he's done is how angry the oil industry is. You saw that kind of Austin Powers moment that Trump pulled off when he said, give me $1 billion and I'll,
Yes.
let you do anything you want. It's not that he's already going to do whatever they want when he gets in office. What he was telling them is, I need that $1 billion in order to make sure that I can win and I can turn the planet over to you. The price for our Earth is $1 billion. This election, on this question, could not be clearer.
Monica, what does Joe Biden and team need to do to get this across to people who are not as well read in as you and Bill are about the consequences here? What's the way to express in simple terms what this administration has done and what it's going to do in the future? And is that better than comparing it to Donald Trump and what he'll do? How would you think about the messaging on this?
Well, I think the messaging is really vital, and to talk about it in terms of the extreme weather events that people are experiencing today. President Biden and the Biden administration has improved heat forecasts. The amount of information you have, your network has, the kind of down to the neighborhood information that we have is better because of President Biden's investment in those weather forecasts. We're planting trees in cities so that we can shade ourselves, literally use nature to help protect ourselves. They're using the infrastructure bill and the IRA to make huge changes along coastlines so that places like Miami that were inundated with water this last couple of weeks are taking it. They're able to absorb it much better. I think the messaging has to be clear that this is a choice in this election, and President Biden is protecting families, protecting the most vulnerable. I loved the fact that you talked about pregnant women in the report before this. The reporter called that out. We think about women and their bodies and their right to choose. Pregnant women are some of the most vulnerable people. He's protecting workers. So we need to get that message out to the labor unions so that they know that President Biden is on their side. He's not going to throw paper towels at them or withhold aid to the states that he doesn't like President Trump did. He's taking these issues seriously and taking action. We've done more than any other administration in the past, not only on climate, but on extreme weather and on preparing ourselves for the kinds of storms, floods, fires that we've seen and we're going to continue to see.
Hey, Bill, what do people do who are experiencing psychological impacts of climate change? You've written extensively about this. What's your best advice to people who feel this, like many other topics we deal with, are overwhelming and too big for them?
Yeah, I think in many ways this is the one that most overwhelms people. And we've got a whole field now of psychology called climate grief and climate anxiety. And it's very real for very obvious reasons. And it doesn't help when you can't go to sleep at night because it's 80 degrees in your apartment. Then you lie awake thinking about things, or at least I do. But the best antidote for despair is action. And in an even-numbered year in America, the most leveraged action you can take is get out there and try and influence the outcome of this election. That's why we've got tens of thousands of volunteers at Third Act, people over 60 who are phone banking, knocking on doors, doing everything they can to make sure that this threat to our climate, as well as our democracy, is turned away in November.
I'm grateful to both of you for really underscoring how crucial this matter is to us. It's existential. It really is. Thanks, Monica. Monica Medina is a distinguished fellow at Conservation International. Bill McKibben is a distinguished scholar of environmental studies at Middlebury College.